My name is Anthony Orozco, and I'm going to show you how to perform a proper pre-trip. First, what we're going to end up doing is starting with opening our hood. Once we're prepped for our hood, we're going to come over here and we're going to sign into our tablet. The tablets at the end of the day should be turned off and then restarted every morning. Our driver login is going to be the truck number ID. This one's going to be 1303, and the password is 1234. Log in, then it asks you to agree on the following terms and conditions. Hit agree. All right, so now the next option is, there's only one option to really select from, and that's selecting your EVIR. And at this point, you can take out your tablet and you can go ahead and select your EVIR. Once you select your EVIR, it's going to come up and it's going to show your last inspection details, which was adding the truck number, what type of truck it was, time and date, and then it's going to show whether there was any defects. But if there isn't any, then you start new inspection. And then the next screen that pops up is you're going to choose your inspection type. And since we're on a ready mix truck, we're going to select the RD mixer truck and then hit continue. Before you can go ahead and scan any of the orange sensors, you would have to start off by scanning this black sensor, which is the asset ID. And you pretty much scan it center of the tablet. And this is you're going to review your last inspection. And there was no issues on the last inspection. So what we're going to do is we're going to approve it, that we reviewed it, and then we're going to continue. All right, the next step that comes up is we have to enter the mileage. Hit continue. Now we're going to go outside and do our pre-trip. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start on the right side. So on this sensor, we're doing the right side of the engine compartment, and we're going to scan it. Again, we need to touch the back of the tablet to the sensor. And as you can see, it brings up a list of what to look for on the right side of the engine compartment. Now you check your belts, your cooling system, ensure that your radiator fluid is where it needs to be. We can't check our engine oil on this type of truck, so on the right side, but when we get there, we'll be able to show you. You check your hoses, your service brakes, and when you're coming over here, you want to check your suspension, your ball joints, your shocks, any hoses that look like they're torn, your turbos, make sure your clamps are okay. And if that's all fine, then we can move over to the next side. But as that is complete, if there's no issues, then you mark all okay. And then we move on to the next side. And then again, center of the tablet, touching the sensor here. All right. Now this side is going to ask you about the same thing on the other side, but since this side we have our engine oil dipstick, we're going to check that. Clean that off and check it one more time. So pretty good. All right, now on this side, we can check our power steering fluid. Obviously, we just check the level, see where it's at. Obviously, we need to add some on this truck. But again, same thing, checking your ball joints, your suspension, your shocks, ensure that everything's where it needs to be and in good operating order. If there's no issues, mark all okay. Then the next thing we do is we shut the hood. Make sure we remove that safety latch. Close our hood. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start our truck. In order for us to do a proper pre-trip, we want our truck to build up air so that way we could check the other components such as our chute locks and whatnot. And we're going to lock this side. Now once we start our vehicle, now there's also a switch up here that you can select for your pre-trip light sequence. That's going to help check your lights for your emergency lights, your high beams, and so forth. And you just click up on it. And that's also doing your backup alarm. So the next thing we're going to scan is our hood. And this is going to check to see if our grill is in okay order, our lights, our emergency lights are working, any marker lights out, our bumper's okay, our pin right here is intact. If everything's working okay, there's no issues, then we'll mark all that is okay. Now we're going to continue on the left side, or the passenger side. Now on this side, there's going to be a sensor right here on the right-hand side on the passenger side. It's the same thing, so scan it. And this one, you're going to check the cab of the body on the right-hand side of any defects. Don't forget to close this latch right here. And you're also going to check your battery compartment. And what this does, when you're checking your battery compartment, you're checking to see if any of our post terminals have corrosion on them. And if you can see here that they're all fine, they're greased, everything's okay. Check your handles. and see if anything else on this list that requires you to check. And since everything looks okay, we're going to go ahead and mark all okay. Now we're going to move to the next sensor. And this sensor, you're pretty much checking your air tanks, ensuring that there's no air leaks, your air lines, checking the passenger side of the gearbox here and the pedestal. And again, if there's nothing out of line, then mark all okay. Then we'll go check our fender. We'll scan it. Now this one right here, you're checking to see how your fender is. If it's in good shape, you check your tires. Now most drivers kick them, most drivers have hammers, or they'll check it with the pressure gauge. And these tires are okay. We're checking our side marker lights, see if they're in good operating order, and as well as we're checking our brake lights and our turn signal lights on the rear side here. Now if there's any issues at all, then we'll hit mark all okay. There's nothing wrong, everything's fine. Now we're gonna go to scan the next one. Now on this one right here, you're checking your pedestal, you're checking your chute lock, you're checking your hydraulic lines, you're checking your hopper, your lights as well. Make sure everything's all working order. And then we're gonna move over and we're gonna check to see how our chute operates, how our drum operates, and so forth. Our chute lock seems to work fine. We'll go up and down on our chute, make sure it's working properly. We'll check our throttle. Throttle seems to be working okay, and our drum discharge and charge. We'll check the lever as well to make sure that it's working properly as well. And it seems to be working just fine. So everything seems to be working fine on the back end. So now that we have no issues, we're going to mark all okay. Next, we're checking the right side fender. This one's the same thing. Or I'm sorry, the left side fender, this is the same thing as the passenger side fender. You're checking your marker lights, you're checking your tires, you're checking your brake lights, and you're checking your drum, make sure everything's working properly. If there's no issues whatsoever, mark all as okay. Then we're gonna go to the next one. Now, for instance, let's say this sensor does not pick up on anything that when you're trying to scan it with your tablet. If it is not working at all, what you do is you go ahead and you select it and hold it, and what you're going to end up doing is this is going to ask for your password that you use to log into at the beginning. What this puts you in is it puts you in an unverified portion of the inspection, and what this does is it allows you to do the inspection without scanning this, and then if there's an issue with this, and then you report it that there's an issue. And this, going into unverified mode, will signify that there's something wrong with that sensor. And this side, same thing. You check your hydraulic line, you check your fuel gauge, you can check your water tank, any water leaking, any hoses leaking, check your pressure as well if you have it on. But if everything seems to be working just fine, then mark all okay. Now we're going to scan the left side. And this left side is the same thing as the right side. You're going to check your air tanks, you're going to check the body of the cab, you're going to check to see at the frame if there's anything wrong. Now, if let's say you do see that there's something wrong, let's say that there's something wrong with the cab of the body, you just select it. Once you select it, you'll see it'll bring up different options to select. There's damage, fender support, fender's broken, loose mounting, and whatnot. But what we're going to put is we're going to say there's something else wrong. And we're going to say there's a dent or something like that. Dent on driver's side. And you might want to be a little bit detailed when you're inputting this. Continue. Is it safe to drive? Yes, it is safe to drive. There's no issues. Then what we're going to do is once you enter that, hit save, select save. Now if you notice, there's a upside down triangle with an exclamation mark. That's going to signify that there's an issue that you identified, and it's going to notify the shop of that issue. So once you're done checking your side, you go ahead, this side, you go ahead and select save. Now the last piece that we're going to check is we're going to check our dash lights, we're going to check our gauges, and we're also going to check our air horn, our city horn, and then anything else that is called for seat belts or safety gear like fire extinguishers and whatnot. So now the last thing we're going to scan is this orange button beneath the black one, or the sensor. And now this is what the list of options is going to bring up. It's going to bring up are your pressure gauges for your brakes, are they low? Is there something wrong? Clutch, transmission. Is there something wrong with your lights? Is there something wrong with your seat belts? But what we'll do is we're going to check our air horns. We're going to check our city horn. Seems to be working just fine. And then if everything else is okay, select mark, all okay. Now you're going to see that this is going to take you to the very front page, or the list of options to select when you're scanning these. And you're going to see that one of them was with that upside down triangle, and there's an issue there. So once you're okay with that, hit continue, and then you're going to certify that the pre-trip that you have completed is 100% true. Then submit, and then you can go ahead and dock your tablet, and then you're done.